This podcast is brought to you by PwC.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of our Family Office podcast. Today we're going to be talking about inheritance tax and succession. Across Europe, we're seeing changes across various countries. So there are some that want to attract wealthy families. There are others that are increasing taxes, making regulation more difficult, and it seems to have the opposite effect. Now, Switzerland's the grand dame of countries who historically have attracted wealthy people here for all sorts of reasons: stability, whether that's economic or political, the ability to have a nice outdoors life, education, and obviously a good tax system. Now, today I'm joined by our head of tax in Switzerland, who also leads PwC Europe Tax and Legal, Dieter. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lisa, for being invited.
So Switzerland's a direct democracy, and if certain criteria are met, any topic can be proposed for public vote, or maybe not any topic, but and one such initiative, which I'm going to refer to here as the Inheritance Initiative, is a vote that will bring in 50% federal inheritance tax. And although there's a 50 million exemption, 50% inheritance tax is pretty high. So for this podcast and then the next two, we're going to be looking at various impacts of that. So today, Dieter will be giving us his thoughts at a strategic level. Then we're going to be speaking to one of our other colleagues about the solutions that clients are looking at generally for succession. And then finally, we're going to be talking about kind of the emotional side of succession and governance and how that works. So Dieter, first of all, you can explain it much better than I have. In a nutshell, what's the background to the initiative?
I mean, I think you have explained already quite well, what it is about. I think it's about taxing the inheritance, but in this specific case, it's combined with a finance goal for ecological purpose. So this is quite unusual in an initiative to combine, let's say, tax raising with spending of it as well at the same time.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time there's been an inheritance tax initiative in Switzerland.
No, it's actually 10 years ago, roughly, where we have seen such an initiative coming up, which has been voted heavily against. So it was a significant majority voting against at that time. And it wasn't as extreme, actually, as it is today.
Yeah, I mean, 50%, even with a 50 million exemption, 50% is a high rate. And can you just comment as well? So there's already some inheritance taxes in Switzerland, and there's also wealth tax.
Yes, you're right, and I think that's part of the issue this initiative has, because at the moment inheritance tax is delegated to be ruled and taxed at cantonal level, and there is nothing like at federal level.
Yeah.
Now the initiative is kicking in at federal level, which obviously creates some challenges for a lot of different stakeholders. And I think that's as well one of the major reasons why I don't think it has a good chance to get through.
Yeah. And so where are we right now? We've had the initiatives being proposed. Where do things stand currently?
At the moment, it's the Federal Council has looked at the initiative and has come up with his view. And the Federal Council has issued that view in a so-called Botschaft, as we call it here, which is a kind of very extensive paper analyzing the impacts this initiative might have for the Swiss economy, and is an analysis sent to the Parliament as well as to send to the sounding process. And the sounding process in Switzerland is quite extensive as well. It involves a lot of different stakeholders, business organizations, lobbying organizations, and all of them are now going to comment on that. The Parliament is going to discuss it in the next couple of months, and we, depending on the outcome and discussion, we potentially going to see the vote happening in November.
Yeah, because I guess as well, in Switzerland is known for having very many family businesses that have a great impact on the economy locally, employing people, creating wealth locally and across the country. And we did a study of 224 family businesses, and we found that 96% would reject it, which maybe that's like asking turkeys if they would vote for Christmas. But I think more kind of practically as well, 8 out of 10 don't have liquidity to pay. So if you need to actually pay out a tax and your asset's illiquid, then you have to sell it. And so the thinking in our survey was that 2/3 of the people we spoke to would then have to sell their business in full or partially, which obviously has a huge knock-on effect in the economy. So it sounds like we're thinking it's not going to be successful, and it's not just tax driven, it's kind of that broader thinking of how businesses will be impacted.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's not unusual to see initiatives coming up, as you know, for all those who are listening now to this broadcast, not being familiar with the Swiss system, we're having votes, every couple of months about a lot of different topics. And it can be any type of topics. We were once voting about whether we want to have one fighter jet or another fighter jet, for the Swiss Army, just put it in perspective.
Yeah.
So if you bring together 100,000 people voting for an initiative, then you can bring it up to the public vote. And I think that's what's happening. That's part of our direct democracy system. And so it's good that we're having that discussion, but I think the likelihood that this gets through is very low for a couple of reasons. First, we have had, as said, 10 years ago, roughly already a similar initiative. It was extremely voted against that. This one is more extreme because they don't have exemptions as we had 10 years ago. So as you're rightly saying, business would have to be selling, or owners would have to sell some part of their business just to pay the inheritance tax, which doesn't make sense, and people might not like that because it's going to impact as well the employees of those businesses, and obviously those are the voters we're talking here about. I think another reason is, as I said, I think it's going to impact the cantons. The cantons at the moment have the right to levy an inheritance tax or not. They might be overruled now by the federal. So the cantons don't like that either. So another important stakeholder group in all of that. And I think it's as well important that the combination the initiative has with, let's say, ecological spend, I think not all do like that to continue to happen, and to as well allocate funds in that area. So you have a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons not going to vote in favor. And I think, of course, everyone recognizes Switzerland can only be attractive and wealthy if it is attracting businesses and is attracting as well businesses from abroad. And I think we have a long tradition of as well attracting wealthy families into Switzerland. I think because of all those reasons, it's not going to be successful.
Yeah, and I find it interesting comparing it to where I'm from originally, the UK. We've seen changes to the inheritance tax rules there being brought in as well, and particularly limits on business property relief and agricultural property relief. And those came in without public consultation. And full disclosure, my family are farmers. My dad's been in Whitehall this week marching with a placard because they're not liquid. So to pay tax, you are going to have to sell them. So I find it a very interesting contrast between the two systems. And like you rightly say, I do think it's what makes Switzerland attractive to international families who are looking for somewhere that's stable to base themselves, their structures and their wealth. So if we turn away from that and think more specifically, you obviously have a leadership role within PwC, but you also still work with clients. What are your clients doing at the moment on the broader topic of succession planning? We know we're in the middle of the great wealth transfer with all capital letters. So are you seeing, is this a topic that you think is something clients like to tackle with relish? Is it something that they think about when there's a tax change? Or is it bury your head in the sand?
No, I think we indeed see that topic rising quite heavily at the moment for as well a couple of reasons. We see it as well happening with PwC. I think I would say in the past probably it was more in closed rooms, just maybe with your trusted lawyer where they have discussed those topics. I think these days it's impacting many more disciplines you need to consider. And I think that's why we see it as well happening much more broader with a PwC context. And I think we see that not just here, we see a lot of families talking to their advisors in other territories. As you're saying, in the UK as well, we see people thinking about it, maybe moving out and considering trust solutions or the like. And I think Switzerland offers a lot of opportunities for them beside tax. I think it's as well the health system, which has been recently been seen as a big advantage of being in a territory where the health system is really operating and is providing the best health kind of hospitals and doctors to any kind of health issue they might have. And so I think health system is important. So I think as well the stability of the environment is seen as a very attractive factor. But I think tax indeed is as well an important element. And if you want to inherit it to your close family members, I think you need to have exactly stability around the legislative change. And with what we have seen now in the recent publications from as well the Federal Council, even in a very, very unlikely case of getting a vote in favor of such an initiative, we would still have time to then consider alternatives and options.
Yeah. So in summary, we think the chances of it coming in are relatively low. Even if it does come in, there's still things that you can do. So don't panic. Switzerland's very much open for business. So I always end with asking a totally random question. So we were talking about votes that go to the public earlier. You mentioned the fighter jets. If you could put one question to, if you had one opportunity to get a vote through, what topic would you pick? He's thinking.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think we do have so many topics coming up. Actually, probably one of the most important ones are around the let's say the structural and institutional relationship with the European Union, our biggest and most important neighbors. I think this is really an upcoming important discussion, and sometimes it's even more important to have a discussion rather than the vote as such, because it opens up a lot of new topics to think about in the Parliament. If I would have to put one question out for public vote, I think we need to move more in direction of making people responsible more for what they do, rather than telling them to do, giving them the power to do more, and that they can really impact with change for a lot of topics currently discussed, like the environmental change. I think we need to empower people to do their own change, rather than, as we currently see all over the globe, with new rules and regulations, where we overwhelm them with new rules and regulations, and we teach them, to do what they have to do. I think empower them is probably would be much more important. And so any questions in that respect, which would require, of course, certain changes in quite a lot of legislation, probably would be the right path down.
That sounds very sensible. And who knows, maybe we'll get 100,000 votes off the back of this. So thank you very much, Dieter. It was really interesting. And thank you to everyone for listening. Goodbye.